going to talk about the oil pressure warning light and its associated switch. Now, one day I'll show you the rear brake master cylinder for an example of this kind of thing that I'm about to talk about. But all over this motorcycle are things that aren't necessarily broken, they're just weird. This is the oil pressure switch. The idea is this screws on the end of the oil pump, so it's at the point where the oil's really firing out. And inside there is a plunger. And if there's no pressure, the plunger is in, and it's an earth switch essentially. It's earthed on the engine and the frame and everything else. So anything attached to that, from the battery to a light, and then back to that, will shine. As the oil pressure builds, it pushes or pulls something, I'd imagine pulls this thing out of the way, and it breaks the circuit and the light will no longer shine. That means there's a light up normally on the little cowl over the top of the headlight on Sportsters, and then when you turn your ignition on it will light up, and it says oil next to it. It'll light up, and then when you start the engine it'll go off, and it'll only come on again while the engine's running if there's no flow of oil. And it's this switch that does it. And I thought, well, where do I I thought, okay, I've got to wire that in. It wasn't wired in, there was no lamp, there was no cowl, the entire front end's off a different bike. It was just sitting there stopping the oil from falling out, really. So I thought, well, what's the kind of connector is that? That's weird. And the more I looked at them online and checked it out, and let's see, here's my new one. And that one looks exactly like the one in all the photographs and in the workshop manual and on the microfiche and everything. It's got, well, you can see it's a nut and a screw there, and you just put a little washer tab attached, crimped onto the wire over that, and that connects it. But like I say, this is the one that was on it. And there's loads of bits like this that kind of almost, yes, sort of the part, but they're not. This is my entire oil pump. I've got a rebuild kit here. I'm not doing the bushes because they're difficult and the bushes in it are fine, but I'll probably film that going back together. And it didn't have the important little, it had the big O-ring, that was nice, and it had the strange shaped O-ring, which I was really pleased about, the kind of stepped one, but it didn't have the normal sort of little one. So I've got a big packet of them here, and there's one in there apparently. So that will go back together, and you'll see that. So what I've been doing today is wiring in my oil pressure warning light indicator, because I think that's a really useful thing. And in the bracket I made to hold these Sportster bracket and Speedo and Taco onto Suzuki yokes, I drilled a couple of little 6mm holes and put a couple of LEDs in it with the standard nasty thin little wires that I'm certainly going to break. Now I had to work this out, obviously, because I didn't know what the hell it was. But the application, installing one of these is fairly simple. Down here is obviously the battery, so what you need is one lead coming off the battery, going all the way up there, under the headstock, and in to feed power into the lamp. Okay. It doesn't go straight from the battery, it goes from the accessories circuit breaker, which is a kind of a mechanical fuse. But the battery feeds into it, so essentially it goes from the battery via the contact breaker, and it's one of these orange wires, orange or accessories, and it goes up and under there and feeds that. Then this is the little green light it's feeding. I wanted it to be the red one, but the red one stopped working, so the red one might be a different light at some point, the generator light, but at the moment the green one is the oil light. Now, to make that light up, it's got power from the battery, the ignition switched on at the moment, but it needs to go to earth. So what you do is, earth on this case is that green wire there, one of them, and that goes back to here, but it doesn't go to any circuit breakers or anything. The current's already been through those, so it's fine, it's safe. Instead, it snakes all the way down, here it is, here's the green wire, and it goes along this frame rail here, and then it connects to, round about here at the bottom of the curve is where the oil pump is. and that's when it connects to this. See if I can hold this and do this at the same time. Okay, that's visible. There's the oil pump switch. That'll be sitting on the oil pump. And yeah, well, I can't see through the thing, but you see what I mean. That connects onto that. One moment. Okay. Yes, so that wire is now connected onto that. And that sits on front of the oil pump, which goes at the bottom bit of the engine there. And that's essentially the earth wire. The oil pump, that's connected to the oil pump, which is bolted to the engine, which is bolted to the frame, so everything's earthed. And when the oil pressure is not on, when the engine's not turned on, when you first turn the ignition on, this will be earthed. The plunger will be earthed. The plunger inside this thing, because there'll be no oil pressure telling it to do anything else. When you start the engine, the mechanical plunger will break the earth. What will happen is you'll turn the ignition on and that green light will be on. Then when you start the engine, the pressure will rise if everything's working okay. It'll break the connection, there won't be an earth anymore, the power from the orange wire has nowhere to go, stops flowing, and the light doesn't light up. So you know the oil's pumping. If the light does light up, you stop the engine right away and sort it out. I shall now simulate the operation of the oil light. As I said, the ignition's turned on, so when I touch this to the earth I made in an earlier video, the light should come on. Yeah, there you go. So when you turn your ignition on, that's what you'll see, and then the engine will start running and it'll break the earth connection and it'll go out. And if anything awful happens while you're going along, if you lose oil pressure, it'll go, help, help, I'm losing oil pressure, and you stop there. So that actually works. And that is how to wire in an oil pressure light when you don't have one and have absolutely no idea.